The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had stood for 10,000 years. Its walls had seen empires rise and fall. Its floors had been walked by creatures from every corner of the known universe. But on this day, something was about to happen that had never happened before. Ambassador Catherine Cole walked through the massive doors with her head held high. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind her walked her assistant, a young man named Daniel Perry, who carried a small data chip in his pocket. The chamber was filled with delegates from 47 different species. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others sat on specially designed chairs that matched their strange bodies. A few hovered in the air using technology that humans still did not fully understand. At the center of the raised platform sat High Arbiter Vextal. He was a Morith, a creature made of living crystal that sparkled in the chamber's lights. The Morith had ruled the council for longer than humanity had existed. They believed themselves to be the rightful masters of the galaxy. Catherine stopped at the speaking podium and looked around the room. She could feel the eyes of every delegate upon her. Some looked at her with curiosity. Others looked at her with barely hidden disgust. The Morith had never liked humans. They thought of them as useful tools at best, dangerous animals at worst. Ambassador Cole, said Vexel, his voice echoing through the chamber like wind through a crystal cave. You requested this special session. The council grants you permission to speak. Catherine took a deep breath. She thought about the 73 years since humanity had first made contact with alien life. She thought about all the wars humans had fought for the council. She thought about all the soldiers who had died protecting borders that were not their own. High Arbiter, she began. I stand before you today to discuss the Frontier Expansion Initiative. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Frontier Expansion Initiative was a new plan that the council had approved just 3 days ago. Under this plan, the Morith would take control of the Vega Corridor, a region of space that contained 14 billion human colonists. The initiative has already been approved, said Vextal. There is nothing to discuss. The initiative was approved while the human delegation was locked out of the chamber, Catherine replied. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. We were not allowed to speak. We were not allowed to vote. And now you tell us that 14 billion of our people must leave their homes so that the Morith can mine their planets. Vextal's crystal body flickered with irritation. The needs of the council outweigh the needs of any single species. The Morith require those resources. Your people will be relocated to suitable worlds. Relocated. Catherine let the word hang in the air. You speak of 14 billion souls, as if they were cargo to be moved from one warehouse to another. These are families. These are children. These are 3 generations of humans who have built lives in those systems. Sacrifices must be made for the greater good, said the Valkyrie delegate, a creature made of flowing silver liquid. All species have given something to the council. Catherine turned to face the Valkyrie. In the past 73 years, humanity has lost more soldiers in council wars than any other 3 species combined. We have patrolled your shipping lanes. We have hunted your pirates. We have bled and died for this council. And what have we received in return? Contempt, dismissal, and now exile for our people. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Some defended humanity. Others called for Catherine to be silent. Vextal raised a crystalline hand and silence fell instantly. Ambassador Cole, you forget your place. Humanity is a young species. You have been part of this council for less than a century. The Morith have guided the galaxy for millennia. We know what is best. Catherine smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the data chip that Daniel had been carrying. You are right about one thing, High Arbiter. Humanity is young. We have only been in space for a few hundred years. Before that, we were fighting among ourselves on a small blue planet, dying of diseases that any of your species would consider trivial. She placed the chip on the podium, and a holographic display appeared behind her. But in that short time, we have learned something important. We have learned that we do not need to beg for scraps from those who see us as beneath them. We have learned that we can stand on our own feet. The holographic display changed. Where the symbol of the United Earth Federation had been, there now appeared 2 words in every language of the galaxy. We resign. For a moment there was complete silence. Then chaos erupted. Delegates screamed and shouted. Some rushed toward the exits. Others stared at Catherine with expressions of shock and disbelief. No species had ever left the Galactic Council. It was simply not done. The Council was everything. The Council was eternal. The Council was the galaxy itself. Vexel rose from his seat, his crystal body blazing with light. You cannot do this. You would not dare. Catherine turned and began walking toward the exit. Daniel fell into step beside her, his young face pale but determined. Vexel's voice thundered through the chamber. If you walk through those doors, humanity will stand alone. You will have no protection, no allies, no place in galactic civilization. Catherine stopped at the threshold. She looked back over her shoulder at the High Arbiter. For 73 years, we have had a place in your civilization. We have been your soldiers, your guards, your attack dogs. And when we asked for one small thing, one simple consideration for our people, you locked us out and voted to exile them anyway. She turned to fully face him. So yes, we will stand alone. We will build our own future without your approval, without your protection, and without your contempt. And someday, when the galaxy learns what it has lost, you will remember this moment. The doors opened behind her. Goodbye, High Arbiter. May you never need the help you so carelessly threw away. Catherine walked through the doors, and they sealed behind her with a sound like the end of the world in the shuttle bay of the orbital station. Admiral Victor Hayes was waiting. He was an old soldier with a face full of scars and eyes that had seen too much death. When he saw Catherine approaching, he straightened up and saluted. It is done, Catherine said. Her voice was tired, but steady. The fleet is already moving, Victor replied. Full withdrawal from Council space within 6 months. Everyone is coming home. Catherine looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, 14 billion humans were waiting to hear what would happen to them. Somewhere out there, Earth itself was preparing for a new chapter in human history. They thought we were nothing without them, she said quietly. They thought we would crawl back begging for forgiveness. Will we? Catherine turned to face the old admiral. In her eyes, he saw something that he had not seen in a long time. He saw hope. No, she said. We will show them what humanity can do when it stops asking for permission. 6 months passed like a slow dream. Every human ship returned home. Every outpost was emptied. Every diplomatic mission was canceled. The borders of human space were sealed, and the communication channels went dark. For the first time since humanity had reached the stars, they were truly alone. The Galactic Council celebrated at first. The Morith were especially pleased. They had never liked humans. They thought humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too difficult to control. Now the human problem had solved itself. The Morith moved into the Vega corridor as planned. Their mining ships began tearing apart the planets that humans had once called home. The resources flowed toward Morith space. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Then the problems began. Commander Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the Federation, Starship Resolute. It was a patrol vessel, one of hundreds that now guarded the borders of human space. Outside the viewport, the stars glittered cold and distant. Lieutenant Kevin Park looked up from his sensor station with worry on his face. Commander, we have another distress signal. Lisa walked over to look at the data. The signal was coming from a Velkari merchant ship about 2 light years outside human territory. The ship was under attack by raiders. Log it and archive it, Lisa said. Her voice was flat and professional. Kevin hesitated. Ma'am, the records show 47 crew members on that ship. Civilians. If we move now, we could reach them in time. That ship is in Council space, Lieutenant. Those are not our shipping lanes anymore. But, Commander, they are going to die. Lisa turned to face the young officer. She saw the conflict in his eyes. She remembered when she had felt the same way, back when she still believed that the galaxy would treat humanity fairly. The Velkar voted against us in the Frontier Initiative, she said. Every species on that council voted against us, or stood by and did nothing while the Moroth took our homes. They wanted us gone. They got their wish. The civilians on that ship did not vote for anything. They are just merchants trying to make a living. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. You are right. Those civilians did nothing wrong. But if we respond to every distress call outside our borders, we will be doing the Council's job for them while they continue to hate us. They have to learn that actions have consequences. She turned back to the viewport. Archive the signal. Maintain course. On the screen, the distress signal pulsed for another few minutes. Then it went dark. The Valkyrie ship was gone. Kevin stared at the empty space on his display. He thought about 47 beings who would never see their families again. He thought about the price of pride and principle. He said nothing. There was nothing to say. Far across the galaxy on Nesser Prime, the Council was holding an emergency session. The great hall that had witnessed humanity's departure was now filled with fear and anger. The Kreeth Syndicate has increased their attacks by 400%, reported the Valkyrie delegate. His liquid body churned with distress. Our merchant fleets are being destroyed. We are losing 3 ships every day, High Arbiter. Vexel shifted on his throne. His crystal body did not sparkle as brightly as it once had. The past 6 months had been difficult for everyone. The Morith fleet is engaged in resource extraction operations, he said. We cannot spare ships for patrol duties at this time. And who will protect our trade routes? Demanded the Nethkai ambassador, a small, insect-like creature with trembling wings. Our economy depends on safe passage through those sectors, no one answered. For 73 years, the answer had been simple. Humans would protect the trade routes. Human ships would hunt the pirates. Human soldiers would keep the peace, but the humans were gone. Perhaps, said the Nethkai carefully, we could reach out to the humans. Offer them something in exchange for their return. Vextel's crystal form blazed with sudden light. We will not beg a junior species to come back. The humans made their choice. They will regret it soon enough. With respect, High Arbiter, the Nethkai replied, it appears that we are the ones with regrets. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the Nethkai was right, but no one wanted to say it out loud, on Earth. President Maria Santos stood before the Federation Assembly. The great chamber was filled with representatives from every human world. They had come to hear what their leader would say about the future. We left the council because they treated us as servants, Maria began. For 73 years, we gave them everything. Our ships, our soldiers, our blood. And when we asked for simple fairness, they locked us out and voted to exile 14 billion of our people. She paused, letting her words sink in. Some say we should go back. Some say we should apologize and beg for readmission. They say that we cannot survive alone, that we need the Council's protection. Her eyes swept across the chamber. I say they are wrong. I say that humanity has never needed anyone's permission to survive. We clawed our way up from the mud of our homeworld. We conquered disease and war and the vacuum of space itself. We did not do this by bowing to those who thought they were better than us. The representatives began to murmur in agreement. The Council is learning what the galaxy looks like without humanity. The pirates are growing bold. The trade routes are falling apart. Species that once looked down on us are now crying for help. Oh. Maria leaned forward. We will not answer those cries. Not yet. Not until the galaxy learns to see us as equals, not as tools to be used and discarded. Let them struggle. Let them suffer. Let them understand the true value of what they threw away. The assembly erupted in applause. Back on the border, Lisa Grant stood watch through another long night. The distress signals kept coming. 5, 10, 20 calls for help that she logged and archived and did not answer. Kevin Park worked beside her in silence. He had stopped arguing after the first week. He understood now what Lisa had understood for years. The galaxy had made its choice, and choices had consequences. But late at night, when the bridge was quiet, he still thought about those 47 Valkyrie on the merchant ship. He still wondered if they had families waiting for them. He still wondered if doing the right thing and doing the necessary thing were always the same. He never found an answer. In the darkness of space, the Kreeth raiders grew stronger. The shipping lanes grew more dangerous. The Council struggled to hold together what humanity had once protected with ease, and somewhere in the deep black beyond the borders of known space, something ancient and terrible began to stir. Something that had been sleeping for 300 years. Something that the Council had contained through constant vigilance and overwhelming force. But the force was no longer overwhelming. The vigilance was no longer constant, and the sleeper was beginning to wake. The universe held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. 2 years after humanity left the Council, the galaxy was falling apart. The Kreeth Syndicate had grown from a minor criminal group into a major power. Their raiding fleets struck without warning, burning colonies and destroying merchant ships. 3 smaller species had already lost their homeworlds to the growing chaos. The Morith Empire was struggling. Their grand resource extraction plan had consumed most of their military strength. Now they were fighting on 17 different fronts. They were losing, but the worst was yet to come. Admiral Victor Hayes sat in his office on Luna Base, staring at a report that made his blood run cold. Across the desk from him sat Catherine Cole, who had become the Secretary of Interstellar Affairs after their withdrawal from the Council. The Vorn Collective, Victor said. They have been dormant for 3 centuries. Catherine nodded slowly. The Council contained them after the last war. Constant patrols, sensor networks, overwhelming firepower at every approach route. It took the combined strength of every Council species to keep them locked away. And now, the patrol routes are empty. The sensor networks have failed. The Morath pulled their ships away for the mining operation. Catherine set down her copy of the report. The Vorn are awake, and there is nothing between them and the core worlds. Victor rubbed his tired eyes. The Vorn were a machine intelligence, a vast network of self-replicating ships with no mercy and no fear. They did not negotiate. They did not accept surrender. They simply destroyed everything in their path and used the wreckage to build more of themselves. 300 years ago, the galaxy had nearly fallen to them. It had taken the sacrifice of billions to push them back and contain them. And now, because of politics and pride, that sacrifice was about to be undone. The Council has sent a message, Catherine said. They want to meet. They want to discuss our return. Victor laughed bitterly. Now, they want to talk. After everything they did, the President has agreed to hear their proposal. She wants me to lead the delegation. And what will you tell them? Catherine was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the Vega corridor, where her own grandparents had been born. She thought about all the human soldiers who had died in Council wars, fighting for species that looked down on them. She thought about the vote that had started all of this. When the Council had decided to exile 14 billion humans without even letting them speak. I do not know yet, she said. Part of me wants to let them burn. They earned this. Every single one of them. But the billions of civilians out there did not earn anything. They are just trying to live their lives. They did not vote to exile our people. They did not look down on us. They are innocent. Victor nodded slowly. War does not care about innocent. The Vorn will kill everyone, guilty and innocent alike. Catherine stood and walked to the window. Outside, the gray surface of the moon stretched toward the horizon. In the distance, she could see the lights of Armstrong City, where millions of humans lived and worked and dreamed of a better future. I will go to the summit, she said. I will listen to what they have to say. But I will not promise them anything. The summit was held on a space station in the neutral zone between Council space and human territory. Catherine arrived with a small delegation, including Daniel Perry, who had grown from a nervous assistant into a skilled diplomat. High Arbiter Vextel was waiting in the conference room. The Morath looked different than Catherine remembered. His crystal body was duller, cracked in places. The past 2 years had been hard on him. Secretary Cole, he said. Thank you for coming. I am here to listen, Catherine replied. Nothing more. The negotiations began. Vextel offered things that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. Full voting rights for humanity, Complete compensation for the Vega corridor. A formal apology to be broadcast across the entire galaxy. Catherine listened to all of it without expression. When Vexel finished speaking, she leaned forward. You are offering us everything we asked for before the withdrawal. Everything you said we did not deserve. Everything you claimed was impossible. The situation has changed, Vexel admitted. We were wrong. We see that now. You see it now because you are losing. You see it now because the Vorn are coming, and you cannot stop them without us. Catherine shook her head. 2 years ago, this offer would have been enough. But 2 years ago, you taught us something important. What did we teach you? That the galaxy needs humanity more than humanity needs the galaxy. She stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the stars glittered cold and distant. For 73 years, we believed that we needed the Council. We believed that we could not survive alone. We believed all the things you told us about our place in the universe. She turned to face the High Arbiter. Then we left, and we discovered the truth. We can survive alone. We can thrive alone. We have built new alliance. Ease with species that were never part of your council. We have expanded our territory. We have grown stronger. But the Vorn Vexel said desperately, they will destroy everything. Not just the council, but humanity as well. Eventually, they will come for you too. Perhaps. But that is a problem for another day. Catherine returned to her seat. Here is what I will offer you, High Arbiter. Not membership. Not a return to the old ways. But partnership. Partnership. Humanity will not rejoin the Council. We will never again be your soldiers or your guards or your attack dogs. But we are willing to discuss mutual defense. We are willing to discuss cooperation against common threats. We are willing to treat with you as equals. Vexel's crystal body flickered with frustration. We do not have time for long negotiations. The Vorn are moving. Every day we wait, more systems fall. And I suggest you learn to make decisions quickly. The summit ended without resolution. Catherine returned to human space with Vexel's pleas still ringing in her ears. Part of her felt satisfied. The species that had looked down on humanity for 73 years was now begging for help. There was justice in that. But another part of her could not stop thinking about the innocent billions who would die while the politicians argued. A week after the summit, the Vorn struck. Their fleet emerged from the containment zone like a swarm of metal locusts. Thousands of ships moved with perfect synchronization. Each one a killing machine designed for nothing but destruction. The first system to fall was Velkar Prime, the homeworld of the liquid metal species that had served on the Council since its founding. The Vorn did not negotiate. They did not demand surrender. They simply destroyed. 2 billion Velkar died in the first 3 hours. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Lisa Grant watched the reports come in. Beside her, Kevin Park was pale with horror. They are not taking prisoners, he said. They are not even trying to capture anything. They are just destroying everything that moves. Lisa stared at the screen showing the fall of Velkar Prime. She had never seen anything like it. The Vorn ships moved with mechanical precision, burning cities and ships and orbital stations with equal efficiency. Get me a line to Luna Base, she ordered. Priority Alpha. Now. Within the hour, she was speaking directly to Admiral Hayes. The Council's defensive line has collapsed, she reported. The Morith are trying to regroup at the Vesser cluster, but they do not have the numbers. If the Vorn break through, they will have a clear path to every core world in the galaxy. Victor's face was grim on the screen. What is the Council asking for? Everything. They are begging, Admiral. Vexel himself sent a personal message to President Santos. Lisa paused. He used the word please. Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that everyone was thinking. What is your recommendation, Commander? Lisa thought about all the distress signals she had ignored over the past 2 years. All the civilians she had left to die because they were not her responsibility. She thought about principle and pride and the cold satisfaction of watching enemies suffer. Then she thought about the 2 billion Velkari who had just died. She thought about the billions more who would die if the Vorn were not stopped. We can hold that line, sir. If we move now, if we commit everything we have, we can stop them. She met his eyes through the screen. But it has to be now. Every hour we wait, more people die, and if we help them, what happens after? Lisa shook her head. That is not my decision to make, Admiral. But I know this much. If we let the Vorn consume the galaxy, there will not be a galaxy left to argue about. The decision would not be hers. It would be made by politicians and presidents, my people who weighed lives against principles and tried to find a balance. But somewhere in her heart, Lisa already knew what they would choose. Because at the end of the day, humanity was not the kind of species that watched billions die when they had the power to stop it, at least. She hoped they were not. President Maria Santos called an emergency session of the Federation Assembly. Representatives from every human world gathered in the Great Chamber, their faces grave with the weight of what they were about to decide. The reports from the front were devastating. The Vorn had destroyed 4 more systems since Velkar Prime. Billions were dead. Billions more were fleeing in every direction, their ships clogging the hyperspace lanes. As they tried to escape the advancing machine fleet, Maria stood at the central podium and looked out at her people. "You've all seen the reports," she began. "The Vorn Collective has broken containment. The Council's defensive line has collapsed. If nothing changes, the machines will consume every inhabited system in the galaxy within the next 2 years." The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what was at stake. "The Council has formally requested our assistance. They have agreed to every demand we made at the summit. Full equality, full compensation, a complete restructuring of galactic governance." Maria paused. "They have also acknowledged, publicly and officially, that they were wrong to treat humanity as they did." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some representatives nodded with satisfaction. Others shook their heads in disgust. "The question before us today is simple," Maria continued. "Do we help them?" The debate that followed was fierce. Representative Samuel Drake of the Mars colonies stood to speak first. He was an older man with hard eyes and a bitter voice. "They treated us like animals for 73 years. They used our soldiers as cannon fodder. They voted to exile 14 billion of our people from their homes. And now they want us to save them?" He looked around the chamber. "One say, let them burn. Let them learn what happens when you spit in the face of those who protect you. We owe them nothing." Shouts of agreement rose from several sections of the chamber, but then Representative Jella Martinez of the Titan settlement stood to reply. She was young, barely 30 years old, with eyes that had seen the reports from Velkar Prime. "The Council betrayed us," she agreed. "Their leaders treated us badly. But the billions of civilians dying right now are not the ones who voted against us. They are farmers and merchants and teachers. They are children who never knew a galaxy without humans in it." She turned to face Samuel Drake directly. "If we let them die to satisfy our pride, what does that make us? Are we the species that watches innocent people suffer because their governments wronged us? Is that who humanity is?" The chamber erupted in argument. Some shouted for revenge. Others called for mercy. The debate raged back and forth with neither side willing to give ground. Finally, Catherine Cole rose to speak. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone knew that she had been the one to walk out of the council chambers 2 years ago. The one who had spoken the words that changed everything. 2 years ago. "I stood before the Galactic Council and told them that humanity was leaving," she began. "I told them that we would build our own future without their approval, without their protection. I told them that someday they would understand what they had lost." She looked around the chamber. "That day has come. The galaxy is burning, and the Council is begging for our help. Part of me wants to refuse. Part of me wants to watch them suffer the way they made us suffer. Part of me still remembers the look on Vextheles's face when he told us that our people would be relocated, as if 14 billion human beings were cargo to be moved at his convenience." Her voice hardened. "But I did not walk out of that chamber to prove that humanity was cruel enough to let people die. I did not speak those words to show that we could be just as heartless as they were. I left because they treated us as less than we are, because they could not see our value, our dignity, our worth. If we refuse to help now, we prove them right. We prove that we are the animals they always thought we were. We prove that our principles are worthless when tested. We prove that humanity is no better than the species that wronged us. The chamber was completely silent. I did not fight for humanity's independence so that we could become monsters. I fought so that we could become something better. And something better does not watch billions die when it has the power to stop it. She sat down. President Santos let the silence stretch for a long moment. Then she called for the vote. The count was close. For long minutes, the outcome hung in the balance as representatives cast their decisions. Catherine watched the numbers climb, her heart pounding in her chest. When the final vote was tallied, the decision was clear. By a margin of just 23 votes, the Federation Assembly authorized military intervention to stop the Vorn. Maria Santos stood once more. The decision is made. Humanity will fight. But let me be clear about one thing. Her eyes swept across the chamber. We are not going back to the way things were. We are not rejoining the Council. We are not becoming their soldiers again. We are going to save the galaxy because it is the right thing to do, and then we are going to build something new. Something better. Something that treats every species with the respect they deserve. She turned to face the main view screen. Admiral Hayes, you have your orders. Move the fleet. On Luna Base, Victor Hayes received the transmission with mixed emotions. Part of him was relieved. Part of him was proud. And part of him was terrified of what was about to happen. He had fought the Vorn once before, back when he was a young lieutenant. He remembered the way their ships moved, the way they adapted to every tactic, the way they never stopped coming no matter how many you destroyed. This would be the fight of humanity's life. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. All vessels. This is Admiral Hayes. We have received authorization to engage the Vorn Collective in defense of galactic civilization. I will not lie to you. This will be the hardest battle any of us has ever fought. Many of us will not come back. Paused, gathering his thoughts. But we are humanity. We have faced extinction before, and we have survived. We have fought against impossible odds, and we have won. We are not doing this for the Council. We are not doing this for the species that wronged us. We are doing this because it is who we are. Because when innocent people are dying, humanity does not look away. He took a deep breath. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We move in 1 hour, cross human space. 3,000 warships began powering up their engines. Crews said goodbye to loved ones. Soldiers wrote final letters. Officers reviewed battle plans and prayed that they would be enough. On the Resolute, Lisa Grant stood at her command station and watched her crew prepare for the battle ahead. Kevin Park was at his sensor station, his face pale but determined. "Commander," he said quietly. "Thank you." Lisa looked at him with surprise. "For what? For being willing to fight. For not letting them die?" Lisa thought about all the distress signals she had ignored over the past 2 years. All the guilt she had carried, all the nights she had lain awake, wondering if she had made the right choice. "I ignored a lot of calls for help," she said. "A lot of people died because I followed orders. You followed orders because you believed in what we were doing. You believed that the galaxy needed to learn a lesson." Kevin shook his head. "Maybe it did. But now the lesson is over, and we are going to show them what humanity really is." Lisa smiled despite herself. "And what is that?" Kevin looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. "The species that comes to save you, even when you do not deserve it." 1 hour later, the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Battle of Vesser was the largest military engagement. In galactic history, 3,000 human ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and their crews ready for combat. Before them, the Vorn fleet stretched across the void like a swarm of metal insects, thousands of killing machines moving with mechanical precision toward the last defensive line, protecting the Council's core worlds. Admiral Victor Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship Endeavour, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around him, his officers worked in focused silence. each one knowing that the next few hours would determine the fate of trillions of lives. All ships report ready. Admiral said his tactical officer. Victor nodded slowly. He had spent 40 years fighting in the Council's wars, leading human soldiers against enemies that cared nothing for their lives. But this was different. This time, they were not fighting for the Council. They were fighting for everyone. Signal all battle groups, he said. Execute attack pattern Omega. Show them what humanity can do. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships that had trained together for decades now fought together as if they shared one mind. They did not charge blindly at the Vorn lines. They did not sacrifice themselves in hopeless attacks. They moved with precision and purpose, striking at weak points and withdrawing before the machines could respond. The Council observers, watching from Thesser Prime, could not believe what they were seeing. For 73 years, they had used human soldiers as expendable troops, throwing them at problems without thought or care. They had never seen what humanity could accomplish when fighting on their own terms. With their full strength unleashed, the Vorn fleet was caught off guard. Their machine intelligences had calculated every possible response from the Council's remaining forces. They had not calculated for humanity's return. Human weapons tore through Vorn armor. Human pilots danced through enemy formations, exploiting weaknesses that should have been invisible. Human crews fought with a fierce determination born not of hatred, but of the simple, stubborn refusal to let evil win. On the surface of Thesser Prime, the refugees watched the battle unfold in the skies above. Billions of beings from dozens of species looked up at the lights and explosions, their hearts caught between hope and despair. High Arbiter Vextal stood among them, his crystal form reflecting the flashes of combat in orbit. Beside him, a young Moreth watched the human ships with wonder in her eyes. "They came," she whispered. "After everything we did to them, they came to save us." Vextal said nothing for a long moment. He thought about all the times he had looked down on humanity, all the times he had dismissed them as a minor species, useful only as soldiers and guard. All the times he had assumed that the Council's way was the only way. "Yes," he said finally. "They came. Why? Why would they help us?" Vexel watched a human destroyer sacrifice itself to protect a fleeing Velkari transport. The ship exploded in a ball of fire, but the transport escaped. "Because they are human," he said, "and I think we never truly understood what that means." The battle raged for 3 days. On the second day, the Vorn launched a massive assault against the center of the human line. Thousands of ships converged on a single point, trying to break through by sheer force. The defensive line wavered. Commander Lisa Grant was in the thick of it. The Resolute's shields were failing, and half her weapons were offline. Around her, human ships were dying. "Kevin," she called out! "How long until reinforcements arrive?" Kevin Park's fingers flew across his console. 20 minutes, Commander. Maybe more. 20 minutes. It might as well have been 20 years. They would not last that long. Lisa made her decision. "All hands. This is the commander. We are going to hold this line. I do not care how many of them there are. I do not care how long we have to fight. We hold the Resolute charged into the heart of the Vorn formation." Other human ships followed, their captains making the same choice. They would not retreat. They would not surrender. They would fight until they could not fight anymore. Somehow, they held. When the reinforcements finally arrived, the defensive line was battered and broken, but it had not fallen. The Vorn assault had been stopped. On the third day, the tide turned. Human ships pushed forward, driving the Vorn back toward the containment zone. The machines adapted, but the humans adapted faster. For every tactic the Vorn tried, humanity had an answer. And then, at last, it was over. The Vorn fleet was shattered. Their ships drifted in pieces across the battlefield. Their advance had been stopped, their expansion halted. The galaxy, for the moment, was saved. On the Endeavor, Admiral Hayes slumped in his command chair. He was exhausted beyond words, but for the first time in days, he allowed himself to hope. Casualty reports? He asked. Still coming in, sir? Early estimates suggest we lost about 400 ships. Crew losses are in the tens of thousands. Victor closed his eyes. Tens of thousands of human lives gone forever. Sons and daughters who would never come home. Parents who would never see their children again. They died heroes, he said quietly. Every single one of them. A week after the battle, Catherine Cole returned to Desser Prime. She met with High Arbiter Vextel in the ruins of the council chambers. The same room where she had announced humanity's withdrawal 2 years before. The walls were scarred by Vorn weapons fire. The ancient ceiling had collapsed in places. But somehow, the building still stood. The council wishes to express our deepest gratitude, Vexel said. We owe humanity everything. We would be honored to welcome you back as full members with every right and privilege. Catherine shook her head. We are not coming back. Vextel's crystal form flickered with confusion. But the battle, the sacrifice. Surely you want we did not save you to earn a seat at your table, Catherine interrupted. We saved you because it was the right thing to do. Because innocent people were dying and we had the power to stop it. That is all. She walked to the broken window and looked out at the devastated city below. Already, reconstruction crews were at work, clearing rubble and rebuilding what had been lost. Humanity does not need the Council's approval anymore, she continued. We do not need your validation or your protection. We have built something new in the past 2 years, something that belongs to us. She turned to face the High Arbiter. But we are also not your enemies. The Vorn are still out there, weakened but not destroyed. The Kreeth are still raiding. The galaxy is still dangerous? She extended her hand. So here's what I offer. Not membership, but partnership. Not subordination, but equality. 2 civilizations standing together when it matters, but free to choose their own paths. Vextel looked at her hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and clasped it with his crystalline appendage. Partnership, he said. Equality. These are unfamiliar words for the Council. Then it is time you learned them. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The old Council, built on hierarchy and control, gave way to something new. The Galactic Partnership treated every species as equal, with no one above another. Humanity stood not as servant or soldier, but as friend and ally. Admiral Victor Hayes retired to a small farm on Mars, where he spent his days watching the sunset and thinking about all the lives that had been saved. Commander Lisa Grant took command of the new Joint Patrol Fleet, protecting shipping lanes alongside Valkyrie and Morath vessels. She never ignored another distress call. Kevin Park became an ambassador, spending his life building bridges between species that had once been enemies. And Catherine Cole served as the first human mediator of the Galactic Partnership, a position she held for 30 years, on the anniversary of humanity's return to galactic affairs. She gave a speech that was broadcast across the stars. We left because we were treated as less than we were, she said. We returned because we chose to be more than we had to be. That is what humanity is. Not perfect, not always wise, but always reaching for something better. She looked into the camera, and across 100 worlds, beings of every shape and form listened. The universe trembled when we walked away, but it trembled again when we came back. Not from fear, but from hope. From the realization that there was a species in the galaxy that would fight for what was right, even when it cost them everything. She smiled. We are still here. We will always be here. And we are just getting started. The broadcast ended, and across the galaxy, humans and aliens alike looked up at the stars and wondered what the future would bring. Whatever it was, they would face it together. The end.